All right, well, welcome to Live from My Drum Room. My guest today is legendary drummer, author, Grammy Award winner, and pillar of the drum community, John Bermuda Schwartz. John is best known for being Weird Al Yankovic's drummer since 1980. And today we'll do a deep dive into his rock-solid drumming with Weird Al and much more. Weird Al is currently on tour on a 90-date tour of North America. And John has been kind enough to join me today on a day off, and I'm honored to have him here. So come along for the ride and welcome the great John Bermuda Schwartz.
Oh, thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you, my friend. It's great to see you. Lots of our friends are watching today, not surprisingly. You're a popular man, a beloved man. Yeah. But I promise I won't turn this into one of those "this is your life" episodes. We're going to talk about, you know, your rock solid drumming and the fact that you've been with Weird Al, you know, and it didn't really occur to me, John, until I started really doing a deep dive. And when you and I got in touch a while back, and I looked back and thought, for as long as I can remember, since the early 1980s, you've been there with Weird Al, and it goes back to 1980.
Yep. Amazing.
I know you've probably told the story 10 million times, but maybe you could just give us a quick, it's a famous story how you came to play with him, and I'd love it if you could share it here.
Well, there's a story before the story. There's a couple of stories, but I'll give you the quick one. You know, back in the day, high school and college kids, you know, listen to Dr. Demento and all that. I did, all my friends
Sure.
did. And one day, Dr. Demento held a contest for a song that was it was always the number one most requested song, and he just was sort of tired of it. He says, you know, I want all of you, you know, who are so inclined to make your own version of this song. Pico and Sepulveda was the song, and send it in. And, you know, the top three winners will get, well, the number one winner would get a 78 of the original recording. Anyway, you know, I had some friends in school and band and got them together. This was 1973. And we did a recording. We sent it in, and we came in second place, and which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Out of like over 100 entries. And because we did sort of an instrumental, we didn't do the vocals on it. He started to use it for the intro for his show because he could talk over it. So we were getting played like at the beginning of every show, you know, for a little while. That was pretty cool. We thought that was great. And then we sent him another recording at the beginning of 74, The Ballad of Woodsy Owl. And he played that. A little more time went by, you know, we sent in another song, Mr. Ghost Goes to Town. And he played that. And anyway, so this is, that was 75, was the last time, middle of 75. And over the years, you know, he began to cater more towards homemade music. And in 1980, I was invited to come down and see the show live here in LA. And so I went down there and you know, by this time, you know, the show had, you know, catered to a lot more homemade music, including Weird Al, had become big on the show. And so Demento invited me to come back and do an interview, you know, and which I thought was great.
Yeah.
He says, you can talk about the early stuff you sent in, and then, you know, talk about, you know, whatever bands you're in, stuff like that. So it came back September 14th, 1980. And Al was there that night. He was there a lot of Sunday nights, you know, answering phones, just being crazy. But he was there that night. Of course, I knew who he was, you know, so met him that night. And he was debuting a song he had just written that weekend called Another One Rides the Bus for Queen's Another One Bites the Dust. And asked if I would beat on his accordion case. There weren't really instruments there. And, you know, and the rest of the cast members there, you know, squeaked horns and sang along and clapped and all that stuff. And Demento recorded it. And that became, well, not yet, but it was to become a single and open up some doors. And anyway, I told Al after we were done, I said, you should have a band and I'll be your drummer. He said, okay. So he was still in school. He went back up to school, called me a few weeks later. He says, you know, the song we did went on to the syndicated show, and now it's being, you know, it got played in almost 200 markets. And, you know, the Morning Zoo DJs, you know, at the stations that played Demento would go back to the show and see if there was any funny stuff they could play in morning drive time. And they pulled Another One Rides the Bus. So now we're getting played morning drive in major markets to a not Demento audience. And, you know, all of a sudden things began to kind of take off. So we issued that as a single on our own. We issued it as another single on TK Records, and which may have been the last thing they ever put out. and gradually began and just did some other things and gradually put a band together and got a record deal. And, and it just kind of has been going for 45 years now. And
Wow.
no signs of slowing down.
No signs of slowing down. And I should point out, too, I mentioned in the intro, a 90-date tour. 90-date tour. And, I mean, they're all sold out, right? Or pretty much. It's a sold out.
We sold out last year. We sold out like every show last year.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden and the Forum in LA and Pine Knob and Blossom and, big places.
Yeah.
This year it's a little slower. And I know it's a little slower for a lot of bands. And part of that is the backlash with, ticket resellers and how corporate has kind of taken over selling tickets. And it's become very expensive. $125 ticket has become, $200 or more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fans are not responding as well. We've done 2 shows so far. One was sold out and the other was about 80% sold, which is okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Because we're playing bigger places. So we play a 10,000 seat arena and we sell 8,000 seats. That's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. You're playing this in July. You're playing the TD Garden in Boston, which is it's a basketball arena. It's a big place.
Oh, well, cool.
Yeah, that's great. Well, congratulations, man. We've known each other a long time, and I think so much of you. I wish we got to work together in the business side of it when I was working in the business. Our companies didn't really align in that way, but I know my wife, Kelly, thinks the world of you, and I'm going to jump back. I was trying to remember. I have a memory of just sort of knowing you for a long time, and I don't know when the first time was we met. Maybe you do, but I remember you coming to the Zildjian booth, which is the company that I used to work for, and you're not a Zildjian guy, but I could be imagining this, John. I feel like you came over, and I looked up. I was talking to somebody. I looked up and I saw you, and I looked, did the look at the badge to make sure I was looking at who I thought I was, and you just came over to say hello. I think you came over because you knew I was at that time dating Kelly, who was Vic Firth's daughter. And you said, I just wanted to say hello. I'm a friend of Kelly's or something. And it was just this friendly, you were just this friendly, nice guy who I then later got to know when I'd go over to the Ludwig booth and I'd see to visit Jim Catalano and Todd Trent and all the guys, the old gang at Ludwig, and you'd be there signing autographs, and we'd commiserate about the NAMM show and about the business. And anyway, I just want to say it's a pleasure.
Well, it's a pleasure. And, and relationships really transcend the companies.
Yeah.
It's not about the company affiliate because people move around.
Right.
And
right.
And if you're aligned with a company so heavily and you're aligned with that person, and then they go to another company, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
Well, the answer is you stay with the product you like. And that's the right thing to do. That's always the right thing to do.
It is. And I'll just touch on this for a moment, and I'm going to put the link. Well, it's actually on your website, but many years ago, you wrote a fantastic, I won't say essay, but you really, from an artist standpoint, broke down the whole aspect of what endorsements are, how it really works. And again, I've done the same thing myself. I don't know if people watching this know, I used to do a little artist relations myself back in the old days, but what was so great about it, what is so great about it is you tell this story from an artist's point of view, which is so important. And I think that really resonates, hopefully, with some of the youngsters coming up, and I'll make sure that's in the show notes of this for people to read.
Okay. Yeah. That sort of I first published that online in 97.
Wow.
And in the drummer world,
yes.
I'm sorry, in Rec.Music Makers Percussion Forum. And I did that in response to somebody who had mentioned something about, this guy destroys drum set every night. And, whoever it is just gives them new drums every night. And they obviously, and there's a lot of misunderstandings about what endorsements are and aren't. And unfortunately, none of the companies really had anything online to explain that at the time. And so I put that out, in that forum. And some of the other companies, several companies actually said, can we adopt this as, we'll credit you, but can we use this for a FAQ for the, people who are curious about endorsements, because we hadn't really thought about putting it out there, but obviously it needs to be out there. So that's where that came from. And I think Sabian still uses it, actually, which is funny because I was not, no, you know what? I was a Sabian guy at the time, but that's not why they did that. They thought, well, this is nicely put out. And I have to thank Todd Trent from Ludwig for the great line. The basic premise of being able to get an endorsement is your level of exposure and influence. And that was at a time before there were online influencers, for example. But if you have influence and people know who you are, you can help sell product for the company. And it's really that simple.
You know, and maybe this would be for a future episode, having you on just to talk about all this stuff from an artist standpoint, because you're so right. And you know, I used to preach that till the cows came home and I was blue in the face and whatever other cliche you can think of. But, you know, it's, and Todd and I, you know, I may be a little ahead of Todd, I was in the business a little before him, but we're from the same school. Absolutely. And the days of, you know, I would be at the NAMM show explaining to somebody that it's your level of influence is really, and as you say, there are many aspects to it, but at the end of the day, you know, I look back to the 1980s and you being on MTV when MTV was, you know, the biggest thing in the world. And you guys were, you know, in heavy rotation with your videos and not just MTV, but just TV shows. And that's influence, that's exposure, and that counts for a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky. We came up at the right time when MTV was still playing videos. They were still hungry for videos.
Yeah.
And they liked Al's videos, and they helped sell a lot of records.
They were, I mean, hands down, at that time, they were the best videos. They were, I keep thinking about the Michael Jackson parody for Bad, Fat, and Eat It, and, you know, all those, you know, I mean, they were just so many classics. I Lost on Jeopardy, right? Wasn't that? Anyway, I could
there's a bunch. There's 14 albums worth.
Oh, man. Well, I know I sort of skipped ahead a little bit. I skipped ahead, and I know, you know, you have a background where you studied drums, and before you started working with Weird Al in 1980, 81, you were already a pro drummer. You were already working. You grew up. You didn't grow up in Chicago, though. You were born in Chicago, but.
Born in Chicago, grew up a little bit in Phoenix, learned to play drums while I was in Phoenix. And then in 1968, we moved to LA. And actually right around that time, I sort of decided, you know, that I wanted to be a professional drummer, you know, not really knowing what that meant, but I thought, you know, it'd be really cool to make money playing drums.
Yeah.
And, so I was in school bands, I was in marching bands, you know, I had some other bands that I was involved in. Some of the people that recorded these songs that we sent to Demento, you know, were some of my bandmates. And a few of them went on to do very well. There's a flute player at the time named Jeff Verona, and he wound up doing a bunch of TV score things. And he was also on the committee at Roland that invented MIDI.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So he did very well. He's pretty well known in the industry. Anyway, Richard Elliott, sax player, played on Pico and Sepulveda, played on that first recording. And these were all guys that were in my school band. You know, I didn't know any bass players or guitar players or anything like that, really. It was a school band. So those were the guys I employed. They were horn players. And anyway, that sort of led to me doing some other gigs. By the time I was 21, I was working full time as a drummer. I played 6 nights a week at the Holiday Inn in Glendale, California, and somehow, and didn't get paid much, although back in 1977, 78, you didn't need much. You know, apartments were $100, $125 maybe. You know, gas was cheap. You know, so that was the only thing I did. I had my days free. I had, owned my car. I had money in the bank somehow. You know, that was pretty cool. That lasted about a year. But I continued playing in bands, and, it didn't really hit big, of course, until Al. And that took a couple of years to really get going. But, once that was in place, now again, you don't really know how long something like that's going to last. And I mean, we never could have imagined, 45 years later, that we would still be doing this at the level we are. I mean, at the biggest level that we'd ever done before.
It's amazing. Yeah, it really is. And I think you made an excellent point too. I'm a couple of years younger than you, but I remember that there was a time when in the 70s, early 1980s, you could make a living playing clubs. You don't make the kind of living you make playing arenas, obviously, but you could, if you had a reasonable apartment, rent was reasonable, and you didn't drive a Bentley, you could do it. You could have have your days free to play and do other things and be a professional musician, which I correct me if I'm wrong now, John, but I don't really see that that's a possibility. At least where I am, there's not enough.
Yeah, it's very difficult. You could work 5 days a week and really, I don't know. And especially in California, especially in LA.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. I mean, you can't, most musicians I know there have day jobs. I had a day job for many, 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 many years, including concurrent with Al. I mean, it was, I'd been with Al 16 years before I finally quit my day job. Because I like having a paycheck every week. And at the time, the money wasn't quite as good as it became later. But there was a point, many years on, and I was able to leave that. And I don't resent having had a day job. I mean, that was okay because I was able to they let me come and go on tour with Al and let me come back. I mean, it's just like 6 times.
Wow.
And finally, it was just obvious. I had gotten married and it was just obvious that I didn't need to go back to the job. And my life had changed. They needed somebody there full time. And I understood that. And so we parted ways. They asked me, they said, well, what else do you want to do? And at the company. And I said, well, I'll let you know. And I just never called them back.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? I mean, you left on good terms, I mean, that's important. And there's obviously a special chemistry with you and Al that, the fact that, I mean, because you're the only member from 1981 that's still there. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Well, the bass player, Steve J., and guitar player, Jim West, joined in early 82, and they are still there.
They are still there. Okay. I don't know why. Okay. Yeah.
This is the core band from the first album, first tour through now.
And they've stayed all that time too, John? They've
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
and we just hopefully temporarily lost our keyboard player. He was the new guy. He joined in 91. And he's having some health issues, and he sent out a sub on this tour. And I don't know if Ruben Valtierra is a longtime keyboard player, and I don't know if he'll make it back out on this tour. Hopefully, when we go out again, and the sub is great. It's not, he didn't screw us with the sub, but it's just, he's been there the whole time, and he's been part of the family, and it's hard to not have him there.
I'm sure. Yeah. Well, let's all hope and pray that he's better and he can come back. And yeah. Wow. Well, I was just reading a little bit of, the sort of history of the band, and I didn't realize that Rick Derringer was in the band at some point.
Well, he was the producer, and there's a story about how he became. I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
Al wanted to do a parody of "I Love Rock and Roll." Because Joan Jett had the hit with that.
Yeah.
And in getting permission, one of the writers was a guy named Jake Hooker. And Jake was in a band called the Arrows. And the Arrows did the original I Love Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
They didn't have a hit with it, however. But he was one of the writers. So, in getting permission, Jake gave him permission and then said, one of my clients is Rick Derringer. Maybe he can produce an album, And we didn't know that we were going to the studio just yet, but we were about to. And Rick came in, was the producer. We didn't have Jim on guitar just yet. He literally showed up 2 weeks after we did the album and was brought in by the bass player, Steve J. But he wasn't there for the recording of those initial songs. So Rick played guitar on almost everything on that first album. So that first band really was me and Steve and Rick and Al. And that was pretty cool. Rick was a cool guy, of course, a great guitar player.
Yeah.
And he produced our first 6 albums.
I didn't know that. Man. Wow. I met him one time on a Ringo Starr All-Star tour. Greg Bissonette introduced us, and our mutual friend Myron Grombacher played with Rick Derringer back in the 70s. So Greg said, meet my friend John. He's a friend of Myron's too. And, he was such a nice guy, and what a legend, and
Yeah.
Hang On Sloopy, he got up and sang, did Hang On Sloopy from the, you'll know the band that he was in.
The McCoys.
The McCoys. Thank you. Yes. The McCoys. Yeah. So anyway,
it helps to be old.
Man, I mean, it's just so cool. The 6 degrees of all that is just, that's very, very cool. Yeah. And, jumping around, I made a bunch of notes here, and I in case we have to cut this shorter than we want to make it today, there was recently a post on the Hal Blaine group on Facebook that's run by our friend Ingrid. And I knew this story. I think I'd heard it from Hal many years ago, but I'd love for you to tell this story about how you basically had acquired one of Hal's gold records and presented it to him. It's just such a beautiful story. And I think it just, for the people that don't know how much of a beautiful human being you are, this, I think one story just sums it up perfectly.
Oh, well, we, my wife and I, we knew Hal. Hal had consigned a ton of his gold albums. He needed the money back in the early 90s, and had consigned a bunch of those. And at some point, I mentioned to my wife, I said, it would be great if people would go out and go get these albums and give them back to Hal.
Yeah.
And it was just something I said in passing. And she went out and got one. She got the very last one that was available. And that was at Rockaway Records in LA. And it was a John Denver live album. And I don't know if I knew it at the time, but John Denver was like Hal's favorite artist to play with.
Yeah.
And so she went and got that, and then she gave it to me at Christmas. And I guess I had forgotten what I said, and I said, "Oh, this is very cool. What's up with this?" She says, "Well, that's for you to give back to Hal." And I thought, "Oh, that's really nice. Thank you." And we waited a little while. We arranged a dinner with Hal and a couple of mutual friends, and went out to dinner and had Hal come back to the house, to present the album to him, which we did. And of course, the friends were in on this too, and the cameras came out and all that. And Hal was extremely touched. He was really, he couldn't even give his usual thumbs up. He was just like, he was blown away. And that was apparently the only gold album he ever got back. And I went to his house some years later, and he had made a little plaque, something presented, to Hal from John Bermuda Schwartz or something like that. He was just really touched by that. And which I was really touched when I saw that. He was a very, very nice man.
He was such a wonderful man. And that was and I know he, thought the world of you. You and I and many others were part of his email distributions. And you'd see all the names on there, and Lee Sklar and, everybody. But when I heard that story, I just thought that was so beautiful that you were able to do that, you and your wife, and bravo. That's,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's mostly, that's maybe the first time my wife listened to me.
It's great when that happens.
Yeah, that was an extremely nice gesture on her part to follow through with something I said, and which I just kind of said in passing. I didn't expect, I hadn't actually intended to go do it myself. I just sort of mentioned it, and I mean, maybe I would have. I don't know. It's just something I said, and she remembered that and went out and found it. And that John Denver album was the last of the albums that they had. So she got there just in time. Yeah. And for however many other albums are out there, people are just sitting on them, I guess.
Okay. I was going to ask you that. And no others have ever popped up anywhere as far as we know. They're just,
I think a few of them went to his nephew, Michael Kravitz. I think like a handful of those wound up back in his possession. They might be in the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. I'm not sure exactly, but somehow a few more had turned up, but not in Hal's possession, or maybe they turned up after he passed.
Maybe. Yeah. Wow. Well, am I remembering correctly that there was I think back to like over 40 years of seeing you like in ads. And I remember when you were playing the Stingray drums, the fiberglass shells, right? That was
Impact.
Oh,
those were
Impact. That's right. Impact. That's right. Okay. kind of helping get those guys off the ground. And I feel like there was a picture of you with a bunch of vintage drum sets set up around a pool, like you're in your backyard or something. Am I?
Well, I've posted various pictures of kits next to the pool.
Okay.
And,
do you have yeah. And I was going to ask you, do you have a collection? Are you a collector of? Yeah, you are. Okay.
Yeah, very much. I'm trying to pare it down quite a bit. I mean, I've got a lot of product, cymbals in particular. I got a lot of cymbals, and I mean, I got up to about 1,044 cymbals, and I've sold in the last couple of years. I've sold about 150 maybe, and I still need to get that done. Now they don't take up a lot of space, but that mine does. But I mean, a cymbal takes up like 1/8 of an inch. When you nest them, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But there's just so many of them. And I mean, frankly, I don't really use, I use very few of them.
Yeah.
And the reason I started buying cymbals and drums, snares, everything was because of all the different sounds that I needed to capture with Al.
Sure.
And, so I wanted to keep up with that, that production value. So I would just buy a lot of stuff. And then at some point it just became sort of a hobby to collect stuff. I just sold a kit. So I'm down to 32 kits. I sold like 40 snares, so I'm down to 73. And honestly, I don't use. I mean, I use like 5 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's not. But I mean, I've got marching snares, and I've got pancake snares, and I got all sorts of wacky snares. But the ones I use are just, I mean, I could get by with those. If I could sell the other 68 snares, I'd be fine with 5.
Yeah.
If I could sell most of my other kits, and there's some great vintage kits, and get myself down to 3 or 4 kits, that'd be fine. I mean, I want to keep a set of concert toms. I got several kits with concert toms. And, at some point I've just got to thin it out, because my wife is going to have to deal with that someday. And probably, and it's not going to all fit on the front lawn. I mean, she can't, you have to need a bigger house.
Yeah. No, so, I know what you mean.
I'm getting rid of that stuff bit by bit, and trying to do that in the next 5 years, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And thanks for sharing all that. I sort of knew that, but I wasn't 100% sure how deep your collection went. I remember seeing some beautiful vintage Ludwig sets in pictures. And
I've got. I mean, my oldest kit is a 1944-45 Victory kit with wood lugs.
Yeah.
And, it's a nice marine pearl, kept in great shape. It was owned by one of the Maddox brothers, from Maddox Brothers and Rose. And what's interesting is he wasn't a drummer. They didn't really have a drummer in the group. He played fiddle, but he had these drums, and I bought them from a music store near where he lived up in Oregon. And beautiful kit, just really nice. I mean, Ludwig would love to have these back, I'm sure. Next in line is like a 59 transition kit, Ludwig, and beautiful. Oh, and with the original play-on heads, their first plastic heads.
Yeah,
they're still on the kit. It's however many 60 years, whatever later. And then I've got some 60s kits, and somehow I don't have anything from the 80s really. I don't know why, but I mean, as far as the vintage stuff, I really, and I've got some other kits as well. I got some Slingerland kits, and got Dennis St. John's kit from Neil Diamond's movie America.
Yeah.
All those cutaway concert toms.
Right.
And, which he kind of invented that for the drum kit. He was sitting, and I forget the guy's name, but they were at a drum corps show, and the drum line had these cutaway, quads or quints or whatever they were. And Dennis said to the guy, he says, that would be cool to do those like as concert toms, because he was a concert tom guy. And so they made him the first kit, and in the cutaway version of those concert toms. And I have that kit. I was friends with Dennis, and he made sure I had that. He was having some health issues, and they wanted to make sure those went into my hands. And he passed shortly thereafter. And it's really a cool kit. I haven't played it, but it's very, very cool.
I remember those drums. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've got a few other concert tom kits as well. And I like sounds. I like drum sounds. And sometimes you've got to have a different kit or a different snare or a different cymbal to get a different sound. It's not just all about tuning or EQ or processing or whatever. You got to start with the right instrument.
Amen. Yeah. I saw on your website a list of all the different instruments, or at least some of the different instruments. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, sure, you can do a lot in the studio, but you have to start with, to get a concert tom sound, you need a concert tom.
Yeah.
You need to start there. Yeah.
Or take the bottom heads off your toms,
Exactly.
Which they used to do. But it's, I don't like to do that. I've got concert toms, I'm going to use them. And I've got wood, I've got stainless steel, I've got plexig. What is it? What did Ludwig make? What was that plastic? I can't think of it.
The fiber Vistalite, yeah.
I got a set of those. I've got a set of Jenkins Martin fiberglass toms, which are based exactly on Blameyer's toms, which were Hal's toms.
Sure, yeah.
And they Jerry Jenkins knew Alan Blameyer, and got the formula for how he did it, and all that. And he and another guy had worked on getting the exact density and the color and the fiberglass fiber, the amount of that would be wrapped, and how that was spaced and all that. And they're amazing. They're really amazing drums. Yeah. And,
do you record with those at all, John? Do you ever use those?
I had recorded something. One of the things I recorded was Jackson Park Express.
Okay.
All the toms in there. That's all those Blameyer toms. And that was a Cat Stevens style parody. So I had to be Jerry Conway on that. And of course, he used concert toms. And again, that's something. Yeah, I could have lined up a bunch of regular toms and taken the bottom heads off, and it might have been okay. But it's a lot simpler and cooler to show up with these like special drums.
Yeah.
And so those were great. Those were actually the first drums that they made and actually sold were mine. And they weren't actually going to do. I think they weren't going to do a 6-inch, and they weren't going to do a 15 for some reason. And I said, no, I got to have all 8 drums. I got to have 8, 10, 12, 13. And so I bought them the mandrels for them to make those sizes. And they made me, that was the first kit. They put Ludwig hardware on it. I ordered a bunch of lugs from Ludwig. And that was the first commercial sale they had back in 2012, maybe, something like that.
That's fascinating. Well, you did a perfect setup. I wanted to play some of Jackson Park Express, and what a great segue to hear some of these drums. It's a long song, so yeah. I may ask you to guide me through it. We'll start it. We'll listen to it, and feel free to add anything you'd like to add during the song while we play it. Okay. And when was this song recorded, John?
Probably 2013 or 14.
Okay, perfect. This is Jackson Park Express, Weird Al with John Bermuda Schwartz on drums.
Tuesday morning, 8:15, I was riding to work on the Jackson Park Express. Seemed like any other day. Then my whole world changed in a way I never could have guessed. 'Cause she walked in, took the seat right across the aisle. I knew we had a special connection the second I saw her smile. She smiled as if to say, hello, haven't seen you on this bus before. I gave her a look that said, life is funny, you never know what's in store. By the way, your hair is beautiful. I bet it smells like raisins. She looked at me in a way that asked, did you have a nose job or something? I'm only asking, 'cause your nose looks slightly better than the rest of your face. I arched my eyebrow ever so slightly, which was my way of asking, do you want my old Hewlett-Packard printer? It still works, kinda, and I got a bunch of ink cartridges left. Then she let out a long sigh, which I took to mean. Oh, mama, what is that deodorant you're wearing? It's intoxicating. Why don't we drive out to the country sometime and collect deer ticks in a Ziploc baggie? Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's, you get the idea.
All right, yeah,
I
fantastic.
gave her a pedal tray.
But that's me being Jerry Conway, the late Jerry Conway on the drums, you know, where things, I don't remember specifically what song or songs that was kind of based on, but, you know, it's very obviously a Cat Stevens sound.
Yeah, I can hear the Cat Stevens song in my head, that da, 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 that real sort of more orchestrated, arranged type of music than you usually hear him play, you know, like, yeah, I'll find it. It took me a minute when I was listening. We'll get to Mission Statement in a minute, but I'm listening. I'm going, God, and then it dawned on me what it was, what the parody was, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I did want to ask you. There's actually a question from a viewer, Doug McKenzie, and I'm see if I can come back to this. And he would just like to know what parody cover you found to be most challenging to replicate in terms of the drum part and sound.
Well, as far as a drum part, probably Grapefruit Diet, which is parody of Zoot Suit Riot by Cherry Papa Daddies. And that's funny because I grew up listening to Ringo and Gene Krupa at the same time. So I had very kind of big band chop, leanings, as well as pop, And so I sort of, I sort of could play it, but maybe I didn't rehearse it enough. It's not, that was a tough one for me to get the exact feel. I mean, it's very much a feel thing. It sounds okay, but it's not, I'm not terribly proud of that one because it was a hard one. And then there's a lot of parodies we did that were parodies of sequenced and produced songs, just a lot of samples and stuff. And that stuff, I mean, I started using machines back in 85 and, I'd heard the machines were going to take over, drummers. So I went and bought a machine. I figured I wanted to still do the parts. So, but then that turned into, a lot of specialized sounds and stuff like that. And I had to learn sound design, basically. I mean, I had to figure it out. And what that meant was listening to something and trying to not figure out what they did, but listen to the sample, listening to the snare and, and thinking, well, I hear there's some snare drum in there, but there's kind of a clop. Maybe it's, combined with a rim. There's sort of a doubleized slap. Maybe there's a hand clap on it too, and I would build those samples and create, new samples, to do those particular songs. One song that was, this song took a long time to put together was Trapped in the Drive-Thru. And that was a parody of, was it R. Kelly did Trapped in the Closet? Something like that. And that was, that was all samples except for one part, a little bit into the song. And anyway, it just took a long time to get those samples exactly right. And there was one sound that was like a water drop hitting, and I thought, well, I'll just record a bunch of me going, oh, that was pretty good. I got that on the first time.
Yeah, you did.
I actually have the 1 minute take of me doing that over and over and over until, so I finally got one. Anyway, and it sounded fine. Well, I believe it was actually a Microsoft sound in their computer. I probably should have looked in there for sound effects. But I did that. I made that sound from scratch. Just, other sounds on that. That took a long time to work on. Well, there was one part in that song where Trapped in the Drive-Thru, it's the guy and his girlfriend or wife or whatever, and they turn on the radio.
Yeah.
And Led Zeppelin, Black Dog comes on.
Yeah.
And that was us playing that.
Okay.
I guess we did a good job because people said, oh, that was so cool of Led Zeppelin to let you use their song, let you use their sample. He said, that was me.
I'm going to play that, John, because when I first heard it, just peripherally, I thought that was a sample or just so it was. But then when I listened closely, I'm like, no, that's the band. And this is how great this band is. I mean, you guys are monsters.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And kind of following on to that question that Doug asked in your answer, how does Al or how does the band get around the copyright part of it? Is it all licensed or is it is there like a share of the royalties that gets?
Well, Al asks
revenue?
permission
He does.
so that the royalties could be split appropriately.
Yeah.
'Cause, in a parody, the music belongs to the writer.
Yeah.
Again, not necessarily the artist in many cases, but belongs to the writer or writers. And then the new lyrics, the parody lyrics, belong to Al. So typically it's a 50-50 split. And I think even where, like on some of these, hip hop and rap songs, there's like 7 or 8 writers.
Mm-hmm.
I think somehow they split the 50% and Al gets the other 50% for it. But no, it's all a permission thing just because you need to negotiate the percentages.
Yeah.
And that happens in particular. We have these polka medleys where there's all these different songs. Al's not writing new lyrics to them. And, it's just the arrangement. And you can't give 100%, to 12 or 13 artists, in one song. You're going out of pocket on it.
Yeah.
So he has to negotiate the percentage that they appear in the song. Okay, well, you're in the song for 14 seconds and the song is 3 minutes and 12 seconds. So that's whatever percentage. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what percentage of 100 we will give you. So that becomes basically one song, in the end. And so that's how those are handled. There's a lot of songs involved. He has to negotiate to make sure it comes out as one song. Because on his end, it is one song, really.
Yeah, right. And has there ever been a situation or a circumstance where he hasn't been given the rights to use the music to a particular song?
Well, famously, Prince turned him down back in '85 or something else, I think, for When Doves Cry. And I don't remember what the parody was supposed to be because we didn't get that far with it. What we did instead was we used it in a polka medley, or we did some Prince thing, which that was just a straight percentage, and we got the okay on that.
Yeah.
But he didn't want his song messed with. I don't know how many others were really turned down. There was one, and really there was only one instance where the singer wasn't really thrilled with the parody, and the problem was he didn't write the song, so he couldn't. Al got permission from the writer, which is what you have to do, negotiate the percentage. And the singer just is the singer. That's it, But and the song was a bit of a slam on that singer's song and on the singer a little bit, which Al doesn't really take pokes at people that much, but that was just one. And it was Achy Breaky Heart.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Achy Breaky song. Don't play that song, that Achy Breaky song. I just can't stand it no more. Now, with the way I just sang that, I guarantee you're not going to have to pay a royalty on that. So.
I have to go back into your catalog and re-listen. I've missed a lot. I mean, I remember in the 80s hearing these songs all the time, and then I've missed a lot. So I have to go back. But I wondered, and I, not to spend too much time harping on this, but I know the Eagles are famously you can't do anything. Like if I try to play an Eagles song on my show and I try to use a fair use, because this show is not monetized, so I'm not making money. So typically when I play a band's music, I can show it on YouTube and in my podcast, on my audio podcast. But I think every time I've ever tried to play an Eagles song, I just get the, rejection from the YouTube police saying that, the artist doesn't allow it to be used. So I just wondered that you've never tried to do an Eagles tune, I'm guessing, as a for instance.
No, I'm sure, with Al's popularity back in the day, when he was selling records and the original writers would get a nice percentage, they pretty much agreed. They and a lot of times they would ask, what's it going to be about? Because Al already had in his mind, what the parody was going to be, and I think, well, with the exception of Prince, I think that all of them were flattered and, were happy to make, some extra money. That's extra sales for them.
Sure.
And, but I don't think we ever went after the Eagles.
Yeah. I just care. Yeah. Well, let's play some more music. You gave me some really great songs to play, and you just mentioned Trapped in the Drive-Thru, but I thought maybe I'd play Mission Statement, just at least a little bit of this. This is, and maybe you could, well, if people listen to the lyrics, I just think it's genius what the lyrics that Al has written for this song, because, coming from a corporate background, anybody who works for a company that has a mission statement will just relate to this and get the joke, I guess, so to speak. and I'll just continue and say, I mean, I won't. Should we talk about the fact that it's an homage to "Carry On" by Crosby, Stills and Nash? And
well, there's. I mean, it's very much Crosby, Stills and Nash kind of a thing. I mean, there's certain sections in those songs where you say, well, that's patterned after that, or that's based on that, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, short of a copyright, issue.
Yeah. I shouldn't say an homage, but it's definitely a sort of nod to it. Yeah. Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. And I would just say your playing in this song, John, is just it's so perfect. It's so great.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's from a time that, I grew up playing drums, in the 70s and, and explored a lot of different types of music and not knowing that I would ever be playing something like that. And we do that in concert. We're doing that on this tour.
Oh, you are? Oh, that's great. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned that it's, it's easy to get caught up, sort of listening to the lyrics and the parody aspect of that. But in all these songs, the music, the musicianship, you and the rest of the band is like at a high level. And you're absolutely welcome. And I'll say it again, your drumming in this song is just, and I think you talked about this earlier too, your choice of your sound, the tom sound that you go for in this. I mean, it's perfect. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Hats off to you and to the guys at Ludwig. So here comes Mission Statement.
We must all efficiently operationalize our strategies. Invest in world-class technology and leverage our core competencies in order to holistically administrate exceptional synergy. We'll set a brand trajectory using management's philosophy. Advance our market share vis-a-vis our proven methodology. With strong commitment to quality, effectively enhancing corporate synergy. Transitioning our company by awareness of functionality, promoting viability.
And John, that's you playing the percussion as well, right?
Yeah. It's pretty white, but that's. But yeah,
that's pretty great.
I played all the congos on stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Solutions and synergy. At the end of the day, the table, our capitalized reputation, proactively overseeing day-to-day operations, services and deliverables with cross-platform innovation, networking soon will bring seamless integration, robust and scalable, bleeding edge and next generation, best of breed, we'll succeed in achieving globalization. Gaining traction with our resources in the market. Efficient, critical to stay
It's funny. I haven't really listened to the song because we've just been playing it so much. Started play it every night on these tours, and I hadn't really gone back and listened to that song.
It's a great song.
Yeah, it's when Al puts these things together, I mean, it's just they're really good. I mean, he really is good.
Yeah,
at what he does.
He really is. I mean, he's a genius. I mean, he really is. What to the arrangement? I mean, I'm assuming he does all the arrangements, right? These are all his. Yeah, I mean,
and when there's horn parts on stuff, he arranges all of that.
Yeah.
He calls in the top studio guys to come and play on that stuff, like the polka medleys, for example.
Yeah. Should we play some of those polka medleys right now?
Yes.
All right, let's do that. Beautiful. And this is called Polka Mania. I do want to just take 10 seconds and ask you, first of all, how your battery is looking on your phone.
Actually, I just checked it at 20%, which I'm
Beautiful.
surprised. So we're good for another however long.
Days. We could go all day and all night. That's great. I want to read a comment from our friend Jim Catalano, and anybody watching and listening, if you don't know who Jim Catalano is, he is a legend in the drum industry. He's an old friend of Bermuda and mine, and was the longtime marketing man at Ludwig Drums, retired now, joined the club. But this is a beautiful thing that Jim just wrote. He said, Bermuda is such a great team player. In all my Anaheim NAMM shows, Bermuda was on the setup crew to build the Ludwig display. Then on the last day of setup, John would personally tune each snare drum on the Ludwig display. Now that's dedication. He was always a joy to work with, and he was so much more than an artist. He was Ludwig family and a brother. Plus, he possessed such a great sense of humor. So I think that...
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're a humble man. That's what's so great about it is you're uncomfortable taking a compliment like that. That says a lot.
Sometimes I'm surprised that he never said any of that stuff back in the day. But I'll better late than never. No, thank you, Jim. That's very kind of you.
That's very nice, Jim. Thank you. Yeah, I know. He was much nicer to me when I retired, and then he later retired. But no, he's Jim Catalano, man. Talk about one of the great guys. Yeah. So we'll go to Polka Mania, but I also want to mention that I'm going to put this in the show notes that you are one of the moderators at drummerworld.com, which is a great drum forum that offers great information. And, I'm sure people know about that, but you're a key member of that team as well. And we appreciate your input there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let's listen to some polka. Here we go. And anything you want to say ahead of this, John, to set this up, or should we just play it? And
we've been recording to a click for a long time, just for editing purposes and timing purposes and all of that stuff. And the polka medleys are recorded to a click, but the click is variable. So there's movement and stuff. Sometimes a lot of movement, and that's all to a click. That's not because we can't keep time. That's all deliberately programmed by Al, and that's what we do, and that's what we do live as well. Of course, so now we're running a video behind us, and so we're in order to stay with the video that Al has crafted to the song, we have to be to a click.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any sounds or anything coming off the video. I think it's just to keep us in sync.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all of those tempo changes are there, of course. And now it's been a little while since I played those. We're just 2 shows into the tour. And I sort of was taken by surprise a little bit by some of the changes. I mean, I know where some of them are, and some of them were a little more extreme than I thought. So in the Taylor Swift song that's at the very end, it really accelerates. And that's just sort of, I find myself getting a little bit behind. And it's just, again, fortunately, there's not anything coming out of the server sound-wise, I don't think. So as long as the band sticks with me, we're together.
Yeah.
And if we end the song together, that's fine. But that's, any tempo changes, like pushes and stuff like that, that's all programmed in very carefully by Al. And that's how he wants the song. And that's part of what makes the song cool.
Yeah. Are a lot of the songs to a click in the show?
Not a lot. Maybe half. And that has to do with the fact that there's video running for those songs. So that's to keep us in sync.
Yeah.
There's songs, that were recorded to a click that we're playing that we don't play to a click. And that's fine. There's one song that we do and I just have a click, and that's to keep me on tempo for a song that Al has to do an accordion solo in. And he wanted it no faster and no slower. He wanted it exactly at record tempo, so he could do it. And he made sure we rehearsed it that way. And it's like, okay, I can do it at record tempo. Just, program a loop so you're at that tempo. So I'm actually the only one. There's not a screen for that, not a video for that. But about half the show is on a click and half is not.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
That's just how, shows are now.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I think that says a lot about your time, that, you're playing half a show without a click track. It means that you don't need it. It's like you say, you need it for the videos to keep those in sync and all that. But
playing wise, no, we could certainly play everything without a click.
Yeah.
And just not show any video. But it's part of the multimedia rock and comedy extravaganza that is the Weird Al Show.
Exactly. All right. Well, here we go with some Polka Mania.
So you're a tough guy, like it really rough guy, just can't get enough guy, just always so puff guy. I'm that bad type, make your mama sad type, make your girlfriend mad type, might seduce your dad type. I'm the bad guy. So hello from the other side, I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart, but it don't matter, it clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand, talk to myself for hours, say things you don't understand. I can take myself dancing, and I can hold my own hand. Yeah, I can love me better than you can. We don't talk about Bruno, no. We don't talk about Bruno. I used to think I was smart, but you made me look so naive. The way you sold me for parts, you sunk your teeth into me. Oh, bloodsucker, dream crusher, bleeding me dry like a gosh darn vampire. Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. Can't nobody tell me nothing. You can't tell me nothing. No, can't nobody tell me nothing. Despacito, quiero respirar tu cuello despacito. Deja que te diga cosas al oído, para que te cuentes si no estás conmigo. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. Oh, I, oh, I, oh, I, oh, I. I'm in love with your body. Oh, I, oh, I, oh, I, oh, I. Your old lady who? 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to ya. 'Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to ya. Saturday night we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch. I want you to park that Big Mac truck right in this little garage. Yeah, you're messing with fade. 'Cause the player's gonna play, and the hater's gonna hate. Baby, I'm just gonna shake, shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, and the faker's gonna fake. Baby, I'm just gonna shake, shake it off, shake it off. That's right, I'm gonna shake it off. Gonna shake it off. Watch me shake it off. Shake, shake, shake it off. Hey!
Sorry about the. Wow.
So that we typically did a polka medley, on most of our albums. And since we haven't, Al left his label Sony in 2014 when the last album came out, a number one album on the Billboard 200 charts, which is pretty cool. Debuted at number one. And so in the meantime, and we've done a couple of things, actually a couple of polkas over the year. A Hamilton polka, we did a polka of a couple of songs from Portugal the Man. But it was time for something new, and after many, many years. So in 2024, we recorded Polkamania, and that covered a lot of the hits from the 10 years since we would have done the last polka. So, Billie Eilish and Adele and Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift. And so that's a fun one to play. You know what? The polka medleys are always fun to play because they're just such happy, up,
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
That's great. And obviously, Al, did he grow up playing as an accordion player? Did he play a lot of polkas as a kid?
No, he kind of he went the opposite way. He wanted to play rock songs. So when he got his accordion, he started to learn to play rock songs. I think the first thing he learned to play maybe was Classical Gas by Mason Williams. So that's around 68 or something like that. And he took lessons, but he wanted to play popular music, not polkas. Although his sort of accordion hero is Myron Florin from the Lawrence Welk Show. So that's he was well aware. He didn't completely shun it, but he just wanted to play popular music, wanted to play rock music. And
that's great.
He got to, and we got to play it with him.
And what's great about that song too is the fact that it's a medley and all the different sounds you were talking about before. You can hear different snare sounds in there, and for the different artists that you're covering, and
they did something at the beginning of the Taylor Swift, on the beginning of Shake It Off, and I haven't checked it, but I mean they may have created a new intro for that or something or they may have taken it from her record. I don't know. Or they may have just affected, my parts. I never asked.
Ah, okay.
I got paid, so it's okay.
That's great. Yeah. You're a happy man. Well, let's keep playing some music. And you referenced Trapped in the Drive-Thru earlier, and you mentioned the Led Zeppelin, the Black Dog part, and I've noted that's about 3 minutes in. So let's listen to this from the beginning. And,
it's kind of, I'm not sure where it is. And it can be a very tedious song if you're not a fan. But it's and I got to tell you a quick story about the Led Zeppelin thing.
Yeah, please.
But we Al originally wanted to do Black Dog, and as a recognizable instrumental to come on the radio, and something that we would record. And so he reached out to probably Robert Plant on that, and or Jimmy Page or something, and didn't hear back. So he thought, well, there's AC/DC, Back in Black. We'll ask them. They turned him down on that. Or it may have been a case of they didn't want to just get paid the percentage of the royalty that the 11 or 12 second thing appeared in this 9-minute song. It was just not enough. And Al thought, well, we can always go back and we'll just do My Bologna. We'll just do the My Sharona. We'll do the intro to that. And, that's not going to be a problem. So we actually recorded that. I have a really nice recording of us, playing the first, 20 seconds of My Sharona. And in the meantime, the Led Zeppelin guys got back to him and said, yeah, you can go ahead and do the song. So we had to come back and re-record that section of the song.
Oh.
I mean, we just, they inserted it, and which is pretty cool. I mean, that's actually what Al wanted to do in the first place.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
That's how that came about.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Well, so of what we hear, and we'll hear it in just a minute, did you play more of it and then they just took that section of it? Like, did you give yourselves, but I mean, or you just that one part? I mean, that's all that really, that's the only part you really wanted to put in the song. So I guess you wouldn't have recorded more than that.
Yeah. No, we knew exactly where we had to start and stop. And I mean, maybe there's a couple of seconds, but no, we didn't attempt to play a whole section of the song.
Yeah.
Just we played, Al wanted that section. And so that's what we recorded.
And it's perfect where, you know, that one section and where you put it and all that stuff. It's just so great. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's play this and we'll maybe play a little bit into the song and then we'll get to that point. How does that sound? We'll get to where
it's pretty far into the song. I don't know exactly how far, but it's,
I want to say I think I noted that it's at about 3 minutes. Okay. So let's get to should we get to about 2 minutes and 20 seconds or so? Lead up to it.
Okay.
Great. Here we go. And this is Trapped in the Drive-Thru.
I know a guy named Paul. He used to be my plumber. He was prematurely bald. Then he moved to Pittsburgh last summer. He also has bladder problems and a really bad infection on his toe. And she says, "Mister, please, you can stop right there. That's way more than I needed to know." And then we both were quiet and things got real intense. And then she says, "Next window, please, that'll be $5.82. So we inched ahead in line, moving painfully slow. I got a little bored, so I turned on the radio. Click, turned it off because my wife was getting ahead.
It's such a tease too, because it's so great, man. You guys are killing it.
Oh, thanks. That sounded pretty good.
It sounds.
I don't really listen to these songs that much anymore. You know, I mean, if we're rehearsing one for the tour or something like that, but that's not. I don't remember if we've ever done that one live.
Yeah.
I don't think we really could. You know, with all the samples involved and stuff like that. And plus, it takes up a lot of real estate. You know, in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, just for fun and because I'm such a Led Zeppelin fan, I'm going to play it one more time. Just that one section. Here we go.
Click, turned it off.
I'll tell you, you're playing that with such conviction, you know, really. I mean.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, I'm no John Bonham, but, you know, nobody is really. Well, maybe Vinny. But
I mean, did you listen to Bonham a lot growing up? Was he one of your influences?
No, not until later. I didn't really, appreciate Led Zeppelin for quite a while. And I think probably by the mid to late 70s, I began to really understand what they were doing and to like it and to appreciate what Bonham was doing. You know, and everyone talked about, what a profound sense of time he has and all this other stuff and the feel and all the, the little double kick stuff, on a Speed King, no less. And, it was a while before I really appreciated what it was he's doing. And, he was one of the greats.
Absolutely. Really. Yeah. I when I first heard him, probably the early 70s, I started playing drums in 72 and my sister's older than me and she had all the records, I remember hearing Led Zeppelin 1 and I knew that I loved it, but all I knew was that I just loved the sound of the drums and just the music. And it wasn't until I matured as a drummer that I really got what he was doing. I mean, I loved him for just maybe the same reasons I loved Ringo. I didn't fully understand what Ringo was doing, but I just loved how he looked. I loved how he sounded. I loved what he played. And then when I started to really analyze what he was doing, like you said, his feel, to try to, when you get older and when you take it more seriously and you start to realize that there's more to playing a drum part than just the eighth notes and the hi-hat and the bass and the snare drum, and like the feel is such an important part of it. And that's when I really start to appreciate guys like John Bonham and Ringo and Charlie and Steve Gadd and Jeff and all these guys, you know.
Well, it's so much feel. I mean, it's really about, you know, and you look at Ringo, and Ringo's a great musician, and he's a really, really good drummer. And you can play the parts that he played, but it never sounds like Ringo.
Yeah.
It's just, there's just little inflections and pushes and pulls that make him Ringo, you know, and you're never going to sound and feel exactly like him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Try as we may. Yeah. Well, there's one more song I'd like to play, and yeah, we can start to wind things down here before we lose your battery on your phone. And thanks for being here today too, by the way, John. I appreciate it. I know it's a day off for you.
Well, it's my pleasure.
This is great. And this next song that I'm going to play is called Velvet Elvis, and it's a I'll just share with everybody, there's lots of great Police tribute, you know, in here, some things that you're playing and the way the song's crafted, and maybe you could set this up a bit for us as well.
Well, this is, Al, early on, our albums were always half originals and mostly in the style of certain bands that Al liked, or that were popular. And then the other half was parodies, so it was like 6 originals and 6 parodies, or 5 parodies in the polka medley, which was on most of the albums. And so this is an obvious Police style parody. And this was a fun one. I mean, they're all fun. But this was a fun one. And there's one part towards the end where it goes into this happy little, thing with ice bell things. And, the vocal is very cheery. And then it goes back into this dark synchronicity to, driving, powerful thing. And I particularly like the little double kick things I do, which, stole from Stewart. And it just, I'm just really proud of my work on this. I'm proud of my work on most of the songs, but this was one that just came out, and it's like, this was a fun one, and was very timely because, of course, the Police were happening at the time.
Yeah,
and that's it. But it's again, this is just me trying to fill Stewart's shoes, as I try to do with so many drummers, John Densmore. It's just, there's a lot of guys that I need to get into their heads when we're doing a style parody of their band, and it's not hard, but again, it's hard to feel like them. I mean, I can play the parts, but it's not always, I don't always have that feel. And it's just, it's such a subtle thing. And a lot of guys would listen and, or non-musicians would listen and say, oh, that sounds great. But other musicians would listen and say, you played the parts, but you don't, it doesn't feel like, that guy. And
I think you got it in spades on this one, really, truly. And I wanted to ask you about that. So do you, just like preparing for a song like this, like you said, you can play the parts, but it's like you got in his head. You really did. You got in his head, and you felt those little weird Stewart Copeland things that he does, and
yeah. Well, we study those, we rehearse them. Al gives us a list of songs that, we should sort of base our concept on, without stealing, melodically, without stealing parts. And, and I try and play the part as if that drummer had come in to play on Al's version of his group's songs. And, which is kind of what I did. I try not to do, too many exact things, but sometimes a drummer there's a signature fill or a signature beat. You got to do that in order to convey the feel of the, the style parody. So, I mean, I do have to get in their heads, and that's, so I listen to the songs that Al gives us, which is what he's based his writing on. So, we go through that, we rehearse, we have a fairly thorough rehearsal process. Al will do his own demo of the song, of the originals, and give those to us and say, this is the songs we're doing. And then we have to figure out kind of what to do. We get together and rehearse, and then we record them, and then Al listens to that, and then may make some other changes. And then we go into the studio, and maybe we'll, change a little thing or two. But it's kind of a 3-step process. We don't just show up and have to figure it out, at the moment. We have plenty of time to go through, and I write out all the parts.
Okay.
All the songs. And
I wondered that. Yeah.
And I've kept all of them. I've kept all of these charts. What gear I used on each song, so I can go back and figure out, what's that? What are the hi-hats you used? Oh,
Yeah.
14-inch new beats or something. So
that'll make a great book, John. I'm sure you've already thought of that, but it absolutely would.
Well, I do. Not personally, but I do have a couple of books out that are my photographs of Al.
Yes.
So I have taken this experience beyond just recording and playing with him, and with his permission, of course. And I'll run all the photos by him before they get out there. But that's been a really cool thing, because I always I'm the archivist. I've always taken pictures of everything, and that seemed like a natural kind of thing. I don't know if a book about particular parts would have a very wide appeal. I'm happy to talk about that stuff on podcasts, but I don't know
okay.
that it needs to be in print. But
yeah, I understand. You never know. Hudson Music might someday come calling and say, this would make a great book. Who knows?
Well, I could certainly fill a book with material.
Yeah. And I know one of the books you're talking about, I meant to mention that, and I'm glad you did, the book, a coffee table book, Black and White and Weird All Over. And is there another book besides that one too?
I put out a book in 2022 also called Lights, Camera, Accordion.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
And I have to admit that neither the publisher or I came up with either of those titles. A friend of mine who I had to talk to regarding some of the photos in that first book, Black and White and Weird All Over. And I had to ask him some questions about some photos that he was sort of involved with, and I couldn't remember the details. And so he tried to give me that. He says, by the way, if you need a title for your book, how about Black and White and Weird All Over? Because he knew it was going to be black and white photos. I said, yeah, I'll let you know. So I sort of had a title in mind. Anyway, long story short, when we went with his title, which turned out to be great. And when it came time for the second book, I went straight to him and I said, I need a title for this book. It's 25 years worth of blank color photos. And so he sent me, like within 40 minutes, had sent me a list of like 50 titles. And a lot of them had to do with wherever there was the word in a phrase, world was in a phrase, he would turn that into weird, but he had some other ones that didn't follow that formula. And one of them was lights, camera, accordion, which was, it's great, lights, camera,
perfect.
action, right?
Yeah.
So that was perfect. So, shout out to Mark Jonathan Davis for giving me the titles for this book. So I have 2 books out so far. I've thought about maybe doing a book of all of the archive stuff that I have, all the memorabilia stuff, because I'm a hoarder on that kind of stuff. And I had been even before Al. So it was just a natural transition to collect Al stuff, whenever I got it. And I was thinking that would make sort of an interesting book. I mean, that's more of a fan-centric book, although I guess the photo book of Al is very fan-centric. That's not a very mainstream appeal, although both books have been selling very well. So I'm very happy about that. And Black and White and Weird All Over is being reissued in a 2026 edition with some extra photos and a couple of typos and a little bit more information that I didn't have at the time. And that's we haven't got them on tour yet, but those are supposed to be out shortly. And Al was very kind to let me sell all those books as merch. And of course, he gets his cut too. But sold a lot of books.
Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah, it's great. And Amazon and Barnes and Noble and everyone carry it too, of course.
Great. Well, I'll mention all this in the show notes, and of course, a link to your website and all that too. So yeah, well, let's play Velvet Elvis, and it opens with a "Don't Stand So Close to Me" kind of vibe, right? And then it just you're playing. I think this is the perfect song to sort of end the show with, because it really. I'm glad you feel the same way too, John. It really is a great example of your fine drumming.
Thanks.
Really.
And it's a great song. I mean, if you like Elvis, or if you don't like him,
yeah,
it's a very good song.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here it comes, Velvet Elvis.
My life, it used to be incomplete, till I saw what I was looking for at a drive-in swap meet. My life, life, it won't be the same again. Now I'm proud to say the king lives on inside my den. Oh, it's all I live for. It's all I need. My velvet Elvis. My velvet Elvis. My velvet Elvis means the world to me. Yo, yo, yo. Although he may not be worth much dough, he means much more to me than some old Rembrandt or Van Gogh. Check out those sideburns, there's nothing greater. You can tell that he's no velvet Elvis imitator. Oh, it's all I live for. It's all I need. My velvet Elvis. My velvet Elvis. My velvet Elvis. Oh, now can't you see? My velvet Elvis. My velvet Elvis. My velvet Elvis means the world to me. Whoa. In my own private graceland, in my own little shrine to the king, I don't want nothing else. No, I don't need anything. Don't need no lava lamp. Don't need no soap on a rope. No pictures of Mexican kids with those really big eyes or dogs playing poker. Oh.
It's perfect.
When I'm at home watching my TV, I know the king is always looking down on me. He looks so handsome, he stands so tall. So glad he's big enough to cover up that hole in the wall. Velvet Elvis, he's so fuzzy. Velvet Elvis, he's so great. Velvet Elvis, never ages. Velvet Elvis, never puts on weight. Velvet Elvis, look at those rhinestones. Velvet Elvis, he's just so fine. Velvet Elvis, you can look but don't touch now. Velvet Elvis, 'cause he's mine, all mine.
Man, wow.
I'm proud of that one.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear you say that. You should be. And the comments, people watching and listening are knocked out by everything, by your playing, your sound, the snare sound. It's just nailed it in every way on that, John.
Oh, thanks, everyone.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Bob Sidlowski had a quick question. Does Al tell you what to play, or do you have freedom to create? And that was a question I was going to ask, that does he offer input on parts?
It varies. I mean, sometimes he wants a specific part, and on the original, and so I'll play that part. I mean, he's written the song, and then other times it's like we'll just sound like John Densmore or somebody, and or Roger Taylor or whatever. So it's probably about 1/3 of the time he may have a specific thing he wants me to do, in terms of a fill, or he may just say, I just I want it to sound like a loop of this part from this song, and it's just, just play that, which is, I don't mind doing that, and I don't mind creating parts from scratch. I mean, it's more fun that way, and, a little bit more of a challenge. Not as challenging as a lot of the sound design stuff that we used to do. I mean, every song on that last album, Mandatory Fun in 2014, every parody was all sequenced and programmed. It was all done by me and the bass player, or me and the guitar player.
Wow.
And we handled all of the parts on those 5 parodies on that album. And so I'm very, very thankful to Al that he, sort of groomed me into having to do this. And he never told me to do it. He never said, you're going to have to learn how to do this, or we're going to get, a real programmer in. I just knew that if I wanted to be represented on the album as creating the drum parts, I would have to do that, and I would have to learn that and figure out how to compile different sounds to make a new sound, or maybe that snare is not really even a snare at all. And I just and so listening is always the most important thing, and I would just have to kind of figure out what do I have to do, what elements in that sound do I have in my arsenal, or can I create and put together and make that snare sound, make that kick sound, make that percussion, that particular clap sound or whatever. And that's been a challenge. And I'm really proud of the work I've done. And we all got much, 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 much better at creating sounds, and the production value. So, to go back to the second album, where we really was the first time we were really trying to make the parodies sound more like the originals, that we were more like the songs we were parodying. And we did okay. It wasn't as exact as it became, after 9 or 10 or 11 albums. We just got really, really good at copying sounds. And so I'm really proud of the sounds I got on that last couple of albums.
That's great. That's great. Well, man, we're all proud of you too. And really, you are a really, really special and important part of the drum community for all this and all the things we've talked about today. So thank you for all you do, John.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for being here today with me, John. It's been a pleasure. I was just thinking back when, I don't know how many months ago, I was doing one of these shows and you and John Aldridge were watching and heckling. He was heckling me more. You never really heckled me, but John with his comments. So I'm glad I had him on a while back, and I'm glad to finally have you on the show with me.
Thank you very much. This is a treat.
Likewise, an honor and a pleasure. A big hand, everybody, for John Bermuda Schwartz on tour. Check out Weird Al if you can. He's going to be, I think, playing in every city in the U.S.
And a bunch in Canada.
And a bunch in Canada. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, this is great. Hang with me if you would for 1 second, John, and we'll end the stream. Say goodbye. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon. All right, that's my show. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave me a comment, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also download the episodes on all podcast platforms. And please visit my website, livefrommydrumroom.com, for upcoming shows and information on purchasing Live From My Drum Room t-shirts and hoodies. 100% of the proceeds go toward a scholarship I've created with the Percussive Arts Society. The link is also in the show notes. And you can contact me through my website or at livefrommydrumroom@gmail.com. And remember, no drummers are harmed on any show. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon.